Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
Got quite a stack of sources here today, all from you, and they're all focused on something pretty specific, that experience of attending your very first English class.
That's right. And our goal here is really to, cut through it all and pull out the key things. Think of it as getting you ready, helping you walk into that classroom feeling, well, prepared.
We've sifted through everything you sent, the insights, the advice, basically trying to get you the essentials so you feel more confident about what's coming.
Exactly. And, one thing that really jumps out right away from this material is about how you might be feeling beforehand.
Yeah, it seems like feeling maybe a bit nervous or shy or just worried about actually having to speak English.
Totally normal. The sources make a big point of saying that. If that's you, you're definitely not alone. It's common.
So we're going to validate those feelings, look at why they're normal based on these sources, and then kind of walk through what the material says actually happens in that first class.
We will. We'll cover what happens before, when you arrive, the kinds of things the teacher might say, talking to classmates, and maybe most importantly, how it's really okay to ask if you don't understand.
And crucially, this is all coming straight from the material you provided. We're sticking just to that.
Absolutely. Only what's in these sources.
Okay, so let's start there before the class. You mentioned the feelings. The sources really dig into this, don't they? Validating that nervousness, that shyness.
They really do. It's presented as, look, feeling a bit unsure or, even scared, that's just part of it. And chances are others in the room feel pretty much the same way.
It even mentions some specific worries that might pop into your head.
Yeah, like, am I going to understand anything? Or maybe, what's the teacher going to be like? Are they nice? Those kinds of thoughts.
Right, natural concerns. But the sources offer some comfort there too.
Definitely. A really strong message is, remember, everyone in that room is learning. You're all in the same boat.
You're not being judged. You're there to learn together.
Precisely. And the other key thing they highlight is the teacher. Their whole job is to help you. They want you to learn.
Knowing that support is there is huge.
It really is. That's a big takeaway the sources want you to have before you even step inside.
Okay, and any practical prep mentioned for this stage besides mentally preparing?
Just one very simple but important thing according to the material. Bring a notebook and a pen.
Ah, okay. Simple enough. Be ready to take notes.
You got it.
All right, so notebook ready, pen ready. You've kind of accepted the nerves. What happens when you actually walk through the door? What do the sources paint a picture of?
Well, you step inside, you'll probably see, the usual classroom stuff. Chairs, a whiteboard, maybe some books lying around.
And other students, presumably?
Oh, yeah, definitely other students.
And what about that first contact with the teacher? How's that likely to go down according to this?
The sources suggest it'll likely be a friendly greeting. A simple, hello, welcome to class, something warm like that.
Yeah. Okay, nice and easy start. And then the material flags a couple of questions that seem almost guaranteed, right?
Yes, absolutely. Very common first day questions. They're just practical ways for the teacher to start getting to know who's in the room.
Vitar.
What is your name and where are you from? Standard stuff.
And the sources actually provide the sort of practice answers for these.
They do. They suggest it's a good idea to just practice saying clearly, my name is, and I am from.
So you feel a bit more ready for that first little exchange?
Exactly. Just having those basics down can make that initial moment feel smoother. A good tip from the material.
Makes sense. Okay, so introduction's done. You're sitting down. Now the class actually starts. The teacher's talking, giving instructions. How do you figure out what you're supposed to do?
Right. This is key. And the sources helpfully provide a few common phrases the teacher might use, like a little vocabulary list for classroom instructions.
Okay, like what? What's an example?
Well, One is repeat after me.
And what does that mean in practice?
It just means the teacher will say something, maybe a word, maybe a short sentence, and they want you to say the exact same thing right after them. It's often for pronunciation.
Got it. Okay, what else?
Listen carefully.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's just the teacher signaling, okay, pay attention now. This bit is important.
Makes sense. What about when they mention books or pages?
Ah, yes. You'll likely hear turn to page, followed by a number. The sources even use the example, turn to page 5.
But find that page in your book. Simple.
Simple. And one more they mention is work with a partner.
Meaning?
You'll team up with another student, someone sitting near you probably, to do an exercise or activity together.
Okay. And the sources stress that knowing these phrases is pretty important.
Yeah, because understanding them is how you actually participate in the lesson. It's like knowing the basic commands to follow along. It helps you get the hang of the class activities.
Right, the language of the classroom itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you mention work with a partner, so that brings up other students. The sources touch on connecting with classmates too, right?
They do, yeah. And they frame it really positively. Chatting with other students is presented as, well, another great way to practice your English.
Or speaking opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And getting more practice can, help you feel a bit less nervous about speaking over time. Makes you more comfortable.
Plus, I think the material said it can actually be fun.
It did. It specifically mentions that learning together can be fun. It's not just about grammar rules. It's about, that shared experience, building a little community.
So how do you start, if you're sitting next to someone new, what did the sources suggest saying? Any icebreakers?
Oh, yeah. Very simple, practical stuff. Just, hi, my name's Mewa, and maybe follow up with, nice to meet you.
Basic politeness gets the ball rolling.
Exactly. And if you want to continue a little, the sources suggest easy questions. Things like, where are you from? Which you probably just answered for the teacher anyway. Or even just, do you like learning English?
Easy ways to start a little chat, practice speaking, and maybe make a friend.
That's the idea. Use those opportunities with your peers.
Okay, now for maybe the most crucial part, I think. What happens if you just don't understand? The teacher says something, uses a word, gives an instruction, and you're lost.
This is where the sources are incredibly encouraging. They make it crystal clear. It is absolutely 100% okay if you don't understand everything, especially in the first class.
So you shouldn't feel bad or stupid if you're confused.
Not at all. And importantly, it's okay to ask questions.
Actually, more than, okay, right. The sources say it's encouraged.
Exactly. Encouraged because, as the sources explain it, asking a question shows you're paying attention, you're trying, you want to learn.
And the teacher isn't going to be annoyed.
Quite the opposite. Remember, they're there to help. The material suggests they'll be happy to explain things again or clarify. It's their job. So, don't hesitate.
And again, the sources give you the actual words to use, some helpful phrases.
Yes, which is so useful. They provide specific tools. For instance, if you just didn't quite hear or catch something and you need them to say it again,
What do you say?
you can say, can you repeat that, please? Polite and effective.
Okay, super helpful. What if you hear a word, but you have no clue what it means?
Then the go-to phrase, according to these sources, is, what does that mean?
Simple, direct. Gets you the definition.
Exactly. And one more, they include maybe you hear a word and you want to write it down, but aren't sure how.
Spelling.
Right. You can ask, how do you spell that?
Having those phrases in your back pocket must make a huge difference to your confidence.
Immensely. The material really highlights them as, essential tools for navigating the class successfully.
Okay, so pulling all this advice together, what are the big sort of practical tips from the sources for how to handle yourself during the class?
Well, they kind of boil it down to a few key things. Number one, maybe the foundation. Smile. Try to relax.
Remember, everyone else is learning too.
Exactly that. Keep that in mind. Second big tip.
Don't worry about mistakes.
Yes. Don't be afraid to make them. The sources are really strong on this point. Mistakes aren't bad. They're actually how you learn. They show you where you need to improve. Essential part of the process.
Okay, so relax, embrace mistakes. What else?
Speak. Speak as much as you can. Practice is everything in language learning, and the classroom is a safe space to give it a go. Use the opportunities.
Makes sense. And the last one links back to the start.
That notebook and pen. Use them. Take notes. Write down new words, interesting phrases, maybe a grammar point the teacher explains.
Helps it stick.
Right. It reinforces the learning.
Fantastic. Okay, so class is wrapping up. You made it through. You talked, maybe asked a question. What about afterwards? What do the sources say about reflecting on that first class?
They first acknowledge, hey, just going to that first class. That's a big deal. It's a real step forward.
And you might feel a whole range of things after it finishes.
Absolutely. Maybe you feel happy, kind of energized, or maybe just tired from all the concentration.
Or excited for the next one.
Or excited. Yeah, all totally normal reactions according to the material. And it doesn't just stop when you leave the room.
The sources suggest things to do afterwards.
They do. To keep the learning going. Things like reviewing any new words you wrote down, reading through your notes.
And maybe trying to practice speaking a little bit more, even outside class.
Yes, exactly. Keep using the language whenever you can.
It really underscores that point from the sources. Learning English isn't instant. It takes time. It takes ongoing effort.
That's a consistent message. It's a journey.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We set out on this deep dive, hoping to use your sources to help you feel more ready, more confident about that first English class.
Yeah, we walk through what the material says about handling nerves, what the classroom might be like, key phrases to listen for and use.
How to talk to classmates, and crucially, why it's not just okay, but actually good to ask questions using the specific phrases provided.
Mm-hmm. And I think the overarching message from all material you sent is really positive, that first class. It's a significant step.
It's a space designed for you to learn, with people who are learning alongside you, and a teacher whose whole purpose is to help you get there.
You've got the tools now, based on these sources, knowing what to expect, knowing some key language, understanding that mistakes are part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually leads us to our final thought for you, something to maybe chew on a bit.
Okay.
We talked a lot about those simple but powerful questions the sources highlight for use in class. Can you repeat that, please? What does that mean?
Yeah, the clarification questions.
Exactly. So the thought is this: how might embracing the act of asking those kinds of questions, admitting you don't know, asking for clarity, how might that be a powerful skill, not just for English class, but for, well, any new situation you find yourself in?
Ah, interesting. Taking that classroom skill outside.
Yeah. What could open up for you in learning or just connecting with people if you get comfortable saying, what does that mean? Or could you explain that again in other parts of your life too?